I don't know about you guys, but I've been seeing the new pride flag everywhere. By the new pride flag, I mean the one that has the brown and black stripes on it. It's the Philadelphia pride flag, and I hate it. When I first started this video, my plan was to argue that this flag was divisive and logically bankrupt. It was just going to be a simple little 2-minute rant. It's just me complaining about something that I thought was annoying and stupid. But once I started researching the topic, I stumbled onto a story that makes the flag more than just dumb and divisive. It shows it to be phony and fraudulent and full of so much shit it's scandalous. When I first saw this flag and what it claimed to represent in an article 3 years ago, I thought it was a parody, like something from The Onion or something like that. To me, it just seems like such an obvious and massive step backwards, so regressive and bigoted and opportunistic. I just couldn't believe that it was true. But as we all know, I was seeing the truth, a truth that has now grown to be an inescapable one. Because from what I can tell, this flag seems to have gotten pretty goddamn popular. I mean, when you Google pride flag, just pride flag, this one, the Philadelphia version, is the first one shown. And again, I don't know about you, but in my neighborhood, I swear I'm seeing it hanging from every other house. And I know this sounds like I'm exaggerating things, and I am a bit, but I live in a very liberal city. And within that city, I live in the hip, artsy, even more liberal neighborhood that every city tends to have. This is usually pretty okay for me. I'd consider myself a liberal. I've never not been in favor of equality or gay rights, so the sort of neighborhood that has pride flags flying left and right is fine with me. But this new pride flag that everyone's seemingly switched to is a different story. It has a different story. Believe me, this flag's history, how it came to be, it's... But before getting into that, before looking at the past, at history, let's get to the present. 2020, an election year. And just like the last election year, 2016, tribalism is in the air. Just like last time, Black Lives Matter has exploded onto the scene, which may or may not be related to the media-made race war that's just around the corner. People are clotting into groups that clash against other groups, whether these groups are defined by political loyalties or sexual identity or race. Everybody has an ideological axe to grind. Like right now, we have the abolish the police movement. Keyword abolish. And no, I don't want to talk about cops. I'm talking about the connotation of the word abolish. You see, right now, we are so divided. We aren't satisfied with a simple old race war. No, we need a civil war. And what was the debate that led to the Civil War? Whether or not we should abolish slavery. There were the abolitionist and the anti-abolitionist. The word abolish is and always will be linked to slavery. And slavery, Civil War, well, that stuff's kind of a touchy subject when America is already so culturally divided. So it's no secret why abolish the police became the meme. Because there's so much division. There's so this versus that, us versus them. The cops are evil, just like slavery. All Republicans are racist, something black people. If you're silent, you're a Nazi. Meanwhile, Trump's denial of science has caused 150,000 Americans, and counting, to die of a fucking plague. He ruined relationships with NATO, handed territory to Russia, praised China's dictator for life for managing to attain the title of dictator for life, but Trump wasn't satisfied with making America the figurative leper. Now he's turned all of us into a literal leper. We can't go into other countries because we are spreading a fucking disease that could have been mostly avoided. But no. In a U.S. election year, even the simple act of wearing a mask has been turned into a political debate akin to abortion and guns. See, if you do wear a mask, then you hate freedom. If you don't wear a mask, then you hate science and the human race and logic. But see, even I'm doing it. This is where divisive gets us. Every issue has a side and a team to cheer for. That's a sports metaphor. You guys remember sports? Everybody's got a team to cheer for, a mascot to adore, team jerseys to wear, team flags to fly in the stands, right? That's what this is about, those flags. Why my brave and beautiful neighbors are flying their pride flags with a black and brown stripe. It's the same reason that everybody's putting that Black Lives Matter sign on their lawn. Maybe there are a few real activists, but most are either virtue signaling, broadcasting to the world how woke and wonderful they are, or they're terrified they'll be considered racist if they don't display the sign. It's the desire and or fear of an appearance. It's posturing. So, with the way identity politics seems to consume us every election year, now that there's a specifically people of color version of a movement or product, of course everyone's going to march alongside it or purchase the product and hang it off their porch. And you know, there's also Juneteenth. Yeah, Juneteenth, damn it. What? I knew about Juneteenth before this one. Of course, everyone knows about Juneteenth. Well, you don't, fuck Klansmen. Go back to the fucking Nazi. Okay, what I'm taking a really long time to say here is that this specific meme, this product, this flag, is stupid for a reason that I think is beyond obvious. It's divisive. And it's not just that it divides us into groups, it's that this division was just so unnecessary. LGBT communities don't need to be divided by race. I mean, I would argue that just about nothing really benefits from dividing things by race, from racial identity politics. You know, for the same reason of, I don't know, taking a massive step in the wrong direction, you know, doing the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King Jr. said to do. But never mind, because MLK is actually the racist. Because if you want there to be no distinctions between people by arbitrary traits that are out of their control, like race or skin color, then you're engaging in color blindness, which is the new form of racism. Yeah, that's how the Black Power organizations, most of which are the definition of racist, got away with their textbook fucking racism. They changed the textbook. They made up some terms, and then fucking professors treated it like gospel, and poof, all of a sudden, all these hate-filled, taking pride in the color of their skin, thinking their ethnicity is superior, air-fisting racists were racist no more, while the people who wanted the same thing as MLK became the racist. Now, I'm not saying that all ideas or movements that draw attention to race or highlight differences between groups are inherently bad. I think Black Lives Matter in general is a good idea and does more good than bad. I rationalize this by looking who the group is talking to. BLM's target audience is all of America. And yeah, there are places in America where black people's lives seem to matter less than white people's. There are problems with the way black people are still treated in many places in America. I understand why BLM feels the need to distinguish races. It's necessary to highlight the problems to make their point. But this stupid flag isn't making a massive distinction across all of Americans, at least not in the way BLM is. This flag's target audience isn't as big as BLM's. This flag is commenting on the LGBT community. It's saying that specifically the people of color within the LGBT community need help, need support, and must be facing some sort of bigotry or barrier brought about by the movement that the original non-brown and black stripe flag represents. I don't buy this. I'm willing to bet that the LGBT community is probably one of the least racist communities out there, if not the least racist. They don't need a preachy fucking flag to tell them who they're supposed to accept. The LGBT community, it's not racist. It isn't discriminatory. This flag is discriminatory. And you know, maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think the rare interactions of what might be considered racism in LGBT circles justifies a change in the flag, justifies putting a message on the flag that says, hey, black and brown people, you're welcome too. I mean, I can hear you now. If that's all this flag is saying, then so what? Even if people of color are guaranteed to be accepted, what's wrong with putting it on the flag anyway? What's wrong with reaffirming it? We should always accept people of color, so even if we already are accepting them, why not just, restate it? Oh, and, I think it's pretty obvious, but what gives you, a straight white cis man, the right to comment on this issue? I know. I'm not in the LGBT community. I'm not black. So I don't really know how people of color are treated in the LGBT communities. Maybe it's way worse than it seems. Maybe an alteration to the original flag is justified. I mean, I don't think this is true, but maybe it is. I don't know. What I do know for sure is that if a new flag is required, it shouldn't be this one. It claims to be made by and for the people of color in the LGBT community, but it's a lie. It's not a symbol of hope and progress. It's a bartering chip, a social bribe, a hijacking of wokeness, a fucking exploitation. Oh, and it's also just stupid. It's like laughably illogical. Let's ask ourselves a simple question. Why was the original pride flag a rainbow? It was made in the 70s, and that was a long time ago, but not long enough for the obviousness to be lost. The LGBT flag was a rainbow because rainbows occur in nature. Rainbows are rare, and most importantly, real. LGBT people flew the rainbow flag to say that they were born this way, that however unlikely they were to come into existence, it was an existence that occurred naturally, just like a rainbow in the sky. The flag takes an image of a naturally occurring phenomenon and uses it as its symbol for how the LGBT community wants to be viewed. Real. You see, it isn't hard to understand. This flag works so profoundly because rainbows are real. They exist in the sky, but believe me, I've seen them. I've seen them. But do you want to know what I haven't seen? A rainbow that's fucking black and brown. Rainbows like that, like this, don't exist. They are made up, much like the meaning and supposed progress this flag claims to make. So, actually, in an ironic, roundabout sort of way, this flag ends up actually making sense. There also is just a beautiful bow of poetry wrapped around this whole thing when you learn just how uninspired and duplicitous the motive and creation of this flag was. But I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, but before I get into the history of this flag, just a few more points about like meaning and color and motive and all that bullshit. All right, just bear with me. Okay, so rainbows are a combination of colors. You need multiple colors side by side in harmony to create this one unified thing. It represents people getting along and shit. It's why other movements have used it to symbolize peace and harmony. The individual colors of the rainbow aren't important. On their own, they don't mean anything. Sure, some people have said that certain individual colors represent abstract human concepts, but those people are dumb. It's not about what each one of them means, or even if it sometimes is, it pales in comparison to what they all mean when put together. Now think of the goal behind this movement, of what they wanted to say by designing a new flag. The point of this flag was to convince the LGBT community to welcome black and brown people, and to show this welcoming with an addition to a flag that humanizes them. And how did this movement go about accomplishing this? Well, in about the laziest and, in my opinion, the most offensive way possible. None of the other colors represent skin color or racial groups. So why display these new and welcomed racial groups with colors that literally are just their skin color? You're throwing away all of the oneness and sacredness and community-like meanings that the combination of colors represents. You're adding importance to the individual colors and therefore lessening the importance of what they form together. And again, how do you decide to represent these people that we should stop judging by the color of their skin? By using the exact skin color to define them. I mean, is no one else getting how completely dehumanizing this is? It just makes them the color of their skin. It just turns them into a color. It makes them just a color. It does what we're not supposed to do. Is anyone else getting this? It makes the colors of the rainbow mean more than just being the fucking pretty colors of the rainbow. It makes them explicitly representative of different groups. And with all the importance spent on the individual color, the rainbow becomes not a group of colors working together, but different groups divided, segregated by color. And yes, I know a lot of my arguments against this flag for why I hate this flag. I know a lot of them deal in abstractions and semantics, especially that last one. I'm not even sure if I should include that last one. It's sort of ridiculous. But anyway, for those of you out there that still remain unconvinced of whatever it is I'm hoping to convince you of with this, that this next point is for you, because I'm not talking about anything figuratively. It'll just be the blunt facts that tell the story of why this flag is phony. So let's get into its history. If you didn't know already, this flag is called the Philadelphia Pride flag because it was first flown in Philadelphia. In fact, it was created by the city of Philadelphia. Sort of, but I'll get to that in a second. A big show and spectacle was made out of the raising of this historic and creative flag. It was a big event, and it got a ton of coverage around the country. I mean, it was a good show, a show from which a star emerged. Amber Hikes, the director of the Office of LGBT Affairs, the organization that planned and organized the event. A quick Google search of Amber Hikes makes it obvious that she was, without a doubt, the face of the operation. And boy, has it been beyond beneficial for her career. I mean, look at her now. She's currently the Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer at the ACLU, a title which sounds like an authoritarian euphemism for one of the nastiest jobs the dystopia provides. But like I said, though, what she's known for is gifting the world with the Philadelphia Pride flag. With her LinkedIn even saying, in her first year leading the office, Amber, blah, blah, with the addition of black and brown stripes to the rainbow flag. This basically says she made the addition of the black and brown flag, and it created a massive conversation. Her wiki and a bunch of other things also say that her rise to prominence was due to her creation of this flag. That is the implication at work here, and I think it's an implication that is a bit more deliberate than they'd care to admit. Because when people listen to Amber, or even when they just witness this new flag, I assume they make some assumptions. Like most protest art, from flags to flyers to slogans, it's usually made by an activist/artist, someone like Amber, someone who cares about the issues, who's part of and passionate towards the movement. Flags like this are symbols, and the more passion behind the creator of the symbol, the more powerful the symbol's meaning. But here's the thing about this specific symbol. Amber didn't create it. When the flag was unveiled to the public, Amber had only been working for the Philadelphia government for a few months. She was just the one tasked with touring around and talking about the flag. Yes, she was the leader of the group that did some of the organizing, but she was also the charmer, the friendly face to deal with the public. No matter how it may seem in all of the articles and all the stories about this online, she didn't have anything to do with the design and creation of this flag. So, if she didn't make the flag, then who did? I'll get to that in a minute, but for right now, the question that's more important than the who is the why. Why did the city of Philadelphia make this flag? Why did they put on this big pride flag spectacle to begin with? Well, Philadelphia has always been known for its gay community. I mean, think of the movie Philadelphia. It has an entire section of its city that's called the Gayborhood. It's like there's gay bars everywhere. It's just all the gay people live there. It's like a gay mecca. Well, not really like a gay mecca, because I can't see all the gay people wanting to travel to a place that's going to execute them, but you get the expression. Philadelphia is a great place to be gay, and it has a lot to do with how much the city government listens to and gets involved with the LGBT community, with its gay citizens. But if we go back to early 2017, the time leading up to Amber's hiring, the LGBT community in Philadelphia was having some issues. Some fractures were showing. Specifically, the people of color within the LGBTQ community were growing upset. But not towards straight white people. I mean, yeah, still probably towards straight white people. But the main target in this group's sights was the LGBT movement in general. The LGBT people of color were mad at white LGBT community. Anyway, the first racial injustice that the LGBT POCs drew attention to was the lack of diversity amongst the staff and leadership of some popular HIV prevention nonprofit groups that provide free HIV tests to marginalized members of the community, specifically around the Gayborhood. The protesters didn't really want to pay attention to all the good that these nonprofits did for their community, and instead they were just pissed off that there weren't enough people of color running the show. And yeah, it was a lack of diversity in nonprofit groups that's what started this. That's what caused this. And remember that. Remember that this is what caused this. Anyway, this lack of diversity was just the first injustice they would find, but not even close to the last, because LGBT POC outrage towards staples of the gayborhood would only grow when there were a few instances of bouncers at gay clubs denying people from entering, denying a few people that were specifically dressed like rappers. And then another gay club banned Timberland boots, which was a dress code that I'd be willing to bet had nothing to do with race and everything to do with, stopping thug assholes from dealing drugs in their clubs. I mean, everybody knows if you want drugs, you find the guy wearing the Timbs. Still, though, I can admit none of this looks great for the LGBT businesses. They seem a little discriminatory to the people of color within their community. But what comes next is much worse. The owner of one of the gay bars was caught on camera calling a man the N-word. Seeing as how easily triggered these ravenous protesters were before, this one was really going to set them off. Now, they actually had an excuse. So the city was flooded with outrage, with complaints from LGBT POCs about bigotry. In response to this outrage, the first thing the city does is it forces all of the gay bar owners and nonprofit workers to go to sensitivity training. But the public wasn't satisfied. If anything, this just angered the protesters more. And the city was losing ground. The negative articles were piling up. I mean, this was growing into a PR nightmare, and something drastic needed to be done. So what does the city do? It makes the genius decision to hire Amber Hikes, a queer woman of color, and creates the Office of LGBT Affairs for her to run. Its mission? To restore Philadelphia to its former glory of being super cool with its LGBT citizens, specifically the angry black ones. To do this, they must reverse the supposed exclusion of people of color from LGBT communities. They need a movement, an initiative, a campaign, a miracle to quell the shitstorm they've now been trapped in, because these protesters want blood. They will not settle for anything less than revolution. Philadelphia saw the mob approaching, and they had to think fast. The mob shows up with pitchforks. We want justice! And Philadelphia was like, oh, you guys are mad at the LGBT... Okay, give me that. Hey, look, guys, we put a black and brown stripe on the flag. those stripes, that's you. And none of the other skin tones get a stripe. It's just you guys. You're not only part of the team now. You guys are captains of the team. And Philadelphia beamed that shit out. They broadcasted this message all across the country. They made it an event, because if they really wanted to appease all these protesters, they couldn't just make a new flag and act as if it had some authority over the movement. They had to make the flag actually have authority over the movement. And luckily for them, the flag was a hit. After Amber gave the flag to the rest of the world clapped. They cheered. Many people loved it. I mean, certainly many people just were huge fans of this flag. But I also think a lot of people weren't. And there were some detractors. There were some people that called out this flag for its obvious bullshit, but not enough. Most people just piled on the support. No one dared to complain. And you can't complain, or else, well, you might be the R word. So the rest of the country championed the flag, and for some amount of time, the LGBT POCs in Philadelphia felt like they had accomplished something. But no. The great achievement here was not what the protesters could achieve. It was what the city of Philadelphia pulled off. For as stupid and backwards and opportunistic as this flag is, it's kind of a work of genius. But then again, the city of Philadelphia might not deserve as much credit as you think. This is where I was going to say that the city's flag is a lazily thrown together pandering mess, a brilliant con. I was going to say that their clear lack of creativity and enthusiasm in designing this flag shows just how unserious they consider the plight of the LGBT POCs to be. But actually, it's even worse than this, because the city didn't even make the flag. They hired a PR and marketing firm, a communications agency named Tierney, a firm that specializes in bullshit virtue signaling diversity displays. Tierney makes campaigns and ads and products to aid their clients in public relations and reputation management. An institution like Philadelphia comes to them and they say, hey, so the LGBT people of color are kind of pissed off at us. Can you guys make something for us that we can take credit for, that makes us look like we actually give a single fucking half of a shit about these people? Hands get shook, contracts signed, and then the lying, blood-sucking con men that work at places like this get to work. So Philadelphia hired Tierney, and Tierney produced the Philadelphia flag. For profit, I might add. I mean, I don't know if this thing's like patented or if someone has the rights to it, but holy shit, if so, someone is making a boatload of money because everybody is buying these fucking... Anyway, about money, Tierney, the company, is owned by a parent company called IPG, a massive international corporation. It owns dozens and dozens of companies that seem to all be sort of related. They're firms regarding public relations. Some of the firms even specialize in crisis management. But thankfully, the city of Philadelphia, relatively speaking, was able to nip the complaints in the bud. Well, Tierney was able to, because, again, they made the flag. But this is never a good narrative. That's why Philadelphia hired Amber to show the flag and tour about the flag and basically take credit for the flag. They needed this phony virtue broadcast to look as real and impassioned as possible. And also, they needed to distract from the fact that these people were the ones that designed the flag. Yeah. That's the leadership of Tierney. These people made the flag that quelled the outrage. Do you remember what started the outrage? You know, the white people being in charge of nonprofits that helped the community? That's what started all this outrage from those protesters. So what do you think the protesters would think about this, huh? A for-profit company whose leadership is nothing but white people being behind the flag that convinced all of them to surrender? I think somebody should tell them. Still, though, I started this video with a very specific goal in mind. I mean, for as much as I'm praising/condemning the diabolical plan behind this flag, I still want to say that the flag itself, it's fucking disgusting. Sure, it's effective. A lot of people really liked it, but popularity isn't always the best measurement to go off of. A lot of people really like Trump, yet in the amount of time it took me to write and edit this video, who knows how many more hundreds have died from the coronavirus. And I'm off topic. This fucking flag sucks. It's fake. It's insincere. It's too something. It's too simple. It's too fucking corporate. You could have pulled any protester out of that Philadelphia crowd and put them to work on making a flag, a symbol, a movement. And no matter what their race, I guarantee they could have created something more heartfelt than this. See, because unlike bullshit firms like Tierney, real activists can make campaigns that aren't shielded by virtue, but actually built of it. What we got instead was something focus group tested and market researched, something that was demographically targeted to the point of exploitation. Corporate claims of social justice are a dime a dozen these days, and sadly, their promises of being partnered with passion usually show to be empty. From businesses to countries to religions, if you want to succeed, you best be fluent in insincerity. I mean, do you really think Apple cares about people? Apple doesn't give a shit about gay rights. All Apple gives a shit about is pretending to give a shit about whatever its consumers give a shit about, half of which are probably only pretending to give a shit themselves. I've accepted this. I get that everybody has to pretend. My only issue with this specific little brown and black pride flag isn't that it's insincere. It's that it's kind of harmful. It's divisive. It increases segregation. It gives an excuse to radicals. It annoys the fence-sitters into stepping onto sides they normally would avoid. No matter how much virtue it sprays into the surrounding air, its stench of opportunism can never be covered. And I know a lot of other people out there can smell it. So, I think it's time we start admitting when something fucking stinks. Like that last line. That was a cheesy line. That was dumb, but whatever. I can't think of anything better. I'm just gonna cut my voice off in the middle of a sentence for comedic effect.